Let's head south to Texas and back in time to the 1950s. UFO mania is in high gear, especially in Lubbock, the site of a peculiar phenomenon that is still being debated today. August 31st, 1951. 18-year-old Carl Hart Jr. has his bed pushed next to an open window in his Lubbock, Texas home. He's waiting for a strange recurring phenomenon he'd read about in the papers. Suddenly, it appears. Hart grabs his camera and runs out into the backyard to capture the stunning sight. A V-shaped formation of 15 to 30 lights appears in the night sky. Eyewitnesses say the lights were bluish-green in color, traveling silently overhead from north to south. The lights then disappeared, only to reappear a few minutes later. Writer Amy Title says Carl's sighting wasn't the first time these lights were witnessed.
5 days earlier, on August 25th, the same formation appeared in the sky in view of 3 college professors, one of which was an engineer and another was a physicist. If any group of people had the skills to figure out what this was, it was that group.
After that first sighting, the professors would often observe these lights 2 or 3 times a night for the next few weeks before they disappeared forever. Despite no shortage of eyewitnesses, Carl was the only one able to successfully capture the lights on film.
Carl Hart was ultimately interrogated by the U.S. Air Force and eventually the FBI as part of Project Blue Book.
Project Blue Book was the code name for the systematic study of UFOs by the U.S. Air Force from 1947 to 1969.
Lieutenant Edward Ruppelt, who was the lead investigator on Project Blue Book, also got in on Hart's story. He looked at the negatives of the photographs and determined they were authentic and untampered with.
Project Blue Book reviewed over 12,000 cases. About 700 of them were determined to be genuine UFOs, including the Lubbock Lights. However, Lieutenant Ruppelt also conducted his own investigation and later claimed to have learned what caused the Lubbock Lights. But don't get excited just yet.
On the condition that he remain anonymous, a scientist confided in Ruppelt that these lights were actually consistent with a naturally occurring phenomenon. Ruppelt kept the secret of what the natural phenomenon is because he realized that any discussion or any information would lead people back to the scientist.
So while Ruppelt may have had an answer, as far as we're concerned, the Lubbock Lights remain an unsolved mystery.
No one knows exactly what these lights are, and many question that Ruppelt ever had an anonymous scientific source. Whatever this naturally occurring phenomena is, it has eluded other scientists for decades.
This isn't your typical UFO sighting. This happened multiple times a night over 2 weeks, and hundreds of people saw it. But we still don't have confirmation of what it was, unless you believe Lieutenant Ruppelt really did have an anonymous source who figured it out. Let's see if our experts can shed some light on this mystery. First, we had astrophotographer Andrew McCarthy analyze a popular theory that the lights were actually plovers, migrating birds local to Lubbock, that were reflecting the street lights below them.
Birds generally aren't going to be reflective enough to shine this brightly at night. I've photographed birds at night many times. They never show up as brighter than the surrounding sky. The birds are always silhouetted. These lights were incredibly bright.
Others speculate that these were secret military craft, but military aviation expert Tim McMillan has his doubts.
If we are to assume that each of the points of light that are on the photograph are an individual aircraft, that would suggest that these would be aircraft that are extremely densely packed together, far more so than what would be safe in conventional airborne operations. And so it leads me to believe that we're not looking at individual planes.
Perhaps then this was one aircraft with several lights? But according to Ruppelt's independent investigation, the Lubbock Lights were thought to be flying at an altitude of only 800 to 1,000 feet, just a fraction of the height of a standard commercial aircraft. McMillan says any plane at that altitude should have been heard as well as seen.
Eyewitnesses said that they didn't hear any noise. The idea that you would be able to do that silently, it's not consistent with the technology we have today, much less in 1951.
What about Ruppelt's anonymous scientist? He claimed the Lubbock Lights were, quote, a very commonplace and easily explainable natural phenomenon. We asked meteorologist Juan Hernandez what that could possibly refer to.
I can confidently say this is not meteorological. The reports say that this happened over and over continuous days. That is unlike weather. The wind conditions, the temperature, all that is going to change on a day-to-day basis. It's not astronomical either. Whether we're talking about meteors or comets, objects from outer space never fall in perfect formation.
Which, of course, leaves only one more option.
Whether or not it's out of this world, that's not for me to decide.
Our verdict, the same as Project Blue Book's. We're calling this a genuine UFO, at least until Lieutenant Ruppelt's anonymous source is revealed, along with his explanation.